Hey, ladies, and welcome back to The Rooted Mama. So, as promised, I've got another incredible woman on the podcast this week. Someone who I truly believe embodies what it means to be a rooted mama. So, last week we heard from Brittany, who navigated the medical system like a boss, learning everything she could about her fertility and advocating to get the medical care she needed every step of the way. This week, we're hearing from Shaniqua, another mama with a unique medical history, but ultimately decided to take a completely different path. From the start of her pregnancy, doctors told her she had to have a planned C-section because of a previous surgery. But Shaniqua and her husband, they decided they weren't going to take that at face value. They prayed, they researched, and they prepared for the birth they knew God had planned for them. And let me tell you, it wasn't an easy road. After 4 days of labor, 4 days, Shaniqua went on to birth her baby at home unassisted. Yeah. And through it all, she stayed completely surrendered to God's plan. She is walking wisdom, okay? And this story is going to shift something in you. So get ready because you are never going to be the same after hearing this one. Let's get into it. Welcome to The Rooted Mama, the podcast where motherhood meets wisdom, support, and empowerment. I'm Destiny, a mother on a mission to help women embrace a healed and fulfilling version of motherhood. Whether you're planning for your first baby, navigating pregnancy, or already deep in the parenting journey, each episode features real conversations with women in every stage of motherhood, insights from experts, and practical tips to help you feel grounded and confident. Hi, Shaniqua.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You already know because we called each other beforehand, but I'm still so excited from being on the land today with the house. It was
Yes.
it's just like, I feel so pumped up right now. And we're so close that like it's been kind of difficult these last few weeks because it's like being in labor almost, or like at the end of pregnancy, and you're just like so close. We see the land, we see like the foundation and all the stuff, and I'm just like, the house just needs to be taken from one place and put on the land. And now that it's finally there, I feel like that, like, we can really see the end. Like, we just have a
Yeah.
couple of things left. I'm so happy.
Mm-hmm. It's like crowning.
Yes, 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 yes. And this is perfect segue because you're here to tell us about your amazing, unassisted, God assisted free birth. And but before we do that, I wanted to ask you, did you always want to be a mother? Did you know that you wanted to be a mom?
Mhm. Yeah, I always wanted to be a mom, and especially to girls. I always said that,
Mm.
God, I want all girls because I have all brothers and I'm the only girl. And so I was like, I want
Yeah.
all girls. I'm tired of these boys. All my brothers had boys, 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 just boys everywhere. There's a few girls sprinkled in, but just boys everywhere. And so I was like, God, I want all girls. And even if you
Yeah.
don't give me all girls, at least my first, I need I need a daughter. And also,
Wow.
I think that God, God is so intentional and he's so thoughtful because he already knew that he was going to give me a daughter first. But
Mm.
the I think the purpose in it was to also heal a part of myself from the relationship that I did not get with my own mother. And so, kind
Mm.
of building the mother daughter relationship that I wanted, that I never got, I get to do that with my
Yeah.
firstborn daughter.
What do you mind talking about? Like, what is the relationship with your mother?
So, my mom has been dead for this year, made 10 years. Wow. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, I can't believe it's been that long already. But it's been 10 years since she died. Since she died, and when I was growing up, I went back and forth, living with my maternal grandmother. and then with my parents, and then with just my mom, or then just my dad. And so like it was a lot of back and forth until I was like solely planted to live with my grandma. Um, and so the relationship I had with my mom was very distant because of all the things that I had in my heart. There was a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, sadness because she wasn't present. Definitely not mentally, emotionally present, and physically present. She was, in and out here and there because of the addiction that she struggled with. And so I think it wasn't until I was in maybe middle school, late elementary, maybe early middle school, where she was clean, and started to like, rebuild her life. And even then I could, and she tried to like forge a relationship with me, and I could only be cordial with her because of all the stuff that I had in my heart that I could not forgive her. I couldn't let it go. And so I grew up, and what I heard a lot growing up was, "Oh, why you always got an attitude? Oh, you're always mad." And it wasn't that I was mad. It was just I was extremely sad and brokenhearted, and I didn't know how to communicate it. I didn't have the language to express it, and no one else helped to give me that language. They would only label me as, "Oh, you're angry. You got an attitude problem. Oh, don't talk to her. Don't mess with her. Here she go." And so because I didn't have the language myself as a child, and the people around me were not emotionally emotionally available, and also they didn't have the language either.
Yes.
And so it was just like a cycle that just continued.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was kind of the relationship.
You had like this ability to kind of like just find a way to protect yourself, and that was the only way you knew how. But it made me think of, okay, so that happened, and then you're like getting older and figuring it out. But it made me think of you meeting your husband, and we didn't talk about your husband.
So okay, so let's see. We got married May 2021, and we weren't trying to get pregnant, but we weren't not trying either. And so we were just like, okay, well, Lord, if it happens, cool. If it doesn't, cool. But I would notice that every month when my period came, I would feel disappointed. And I noticed this, and after a few months of this happening, I had to take a step back, like, I must really want this if I'm continuing to feel disappointed when it's not happening. I must really want this. And it was a heart check for me. And I was like, oh Lord, I guess I really do want to be pregnant right now. When I thought I was, if it happens, cool. If it doesn't, cool. No, that wasn't the case. It was, I do want a baby. We both did. And so like we were trying. After that, we were like, okay, then we can try intentionally. And so that was a few months. And after a few months, there was 1 month where it was just and then the next, and I'm like, how am I not pregnant at this point? Because what?
Yeah.
After all that, how am I not pregnant? Let me back up. I had the surgery in April of 20.
Well, I was wondering, did you have the surgery when you were with him or before? I feel like it was before.
It was before.
You were with him,
it was
right?
before.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I had a robotic laparoscopic myomectomy, and that was to remove a fibroid from my uterus. And so I had that surgery April 2018. And I found out about the fibroid just a few months prior in September. And I found myself in the emergency room because I was in the shower that morning and I couldn't even stand up straight. I was in so much pain. And it was very strange. It wasn't normal for me to be in that much pain, even if it was my period. I was never in that much pain. I had painful periods, but it was never to the point where I was debilitated. And so
Wow.
I couldn't even stand up straight, and I'm like boo-hooing. And my friend at the time had told me, you need to go to the emergency room. And I did not want to go, but I went anyway. And so they try to say, well, maybe, cycles are different every month. It's just your period. And I'm telling them, like, no, this is different. Like, this pain, I've never experienced this type of pain before. It's different. And they try to tell me otherwise. So it's so unfortunate, but it could have been caught early on. Maybe a year or two. Maybe this was a year before. I had this OB, and she was an older white woman, very like close to retirement old white woman. And I remember going in and telling her about these shooting pains that I would have in this specific area. And this is what she told me. She said, "Are you sure you're having those pains?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Okay, well, because if you are having these pains, we're going to have to stick a tiny little camera up your vagina and to check out your uterus and see what's going on. And you don't want that, do you?" And I was like, I guess not. No. And she said, "Yeah, you wouldn't want that." So it just slipped right under the radar because of that moment. And so fast forward a year after that, I'm in the emergency room, and they said that they see this mass, and I'm like, "Mass? What is that?" "Oh, we can't tell you anything else. You have to schedule an appointment with your primary care physician." And I'm like what's, and I'm sitting there like freaking out, like, what? Because you hear mass and you think one word, right? And so I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, what is that? What is it?" And I had the appointment with my primary care physician. I get checked out. She actually sends me to somebody else, so a person who I'd never met before, a physician that I'd never met before, doesn't know much of my history, but I just found myself in her office, and she's like, "Okay, yeah, what it is it's a fibroid," and she essentially tells me the name of it, tells me where it's located, and sends me on my way. I had all these questions like, what? I don't know what that is. What is it? Is it going to affect my ability to have children? Like, what is this? At this point, I wasn't married. I was young. I was still in school. And so I'm like, what does this mean? She had no real answers for me. I had to go home and do all the research myself. And so I was doing a lot of research on what this thing is, what it means. At the time, there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot of stuff out. And also, I didn't find a lot of like information, like personal cases, like people sharing on YouTube and stuff. I didn't find a lot of that at the time. And so I'm thinking like, what is going on in my body? What's wrong with me? And so it was very scary. It was very scary. And month after month, my period would come, and I would be in writhing pain. Like, man, this pain would literally take me out. I would be curled up in a ball every month. And I got to a point where, so I did so much research, and I found that like the added hormones in the meat and dairy and stuff that I was eating, it was only adding to, it would feed the fibroid essentially. And so I was like, okay, that's it. That was enough for me to stop cold turkey, to stop eating meat and dairy cold turkey. So I found out in September. October, that's when I stopped eating meat and dairy. And I completely changed my diet, and people would say vegan, but I would just say, because at first it was very overwhelming, like me reading all the ingredients on, like turning on the back of the boxes and reading the labels, and I'm just like, it was so overwhelming. I was doing that for a few months, and then after a few months, I'm like, okay, Lord, like, it should not be this overwhelming for me. I'm not going to do this to myself. You know what? I'm just gonna I'm not going to eat meat and dairy, but if there's like, a milk protein in something, I'm not going to trip about it. It's fine. As
Yeah.
long as I'm just not going to be drinking a gallon of milk and eating
Yeah.
cheese, just outright cheese, and meat. I'm not going to, you know, stress myself out over the all the ingredients on the box at this
Yeah.
point.
Did you
Um
see any improvement with that?
so it wasn't happening fast enough. It was not happening fast enough at the pace that I needed for the pain to go away. And
Yeah.
so after a few months, I was like, I'm not seeing any, like, there was results in other areas. Like my skin was clear. I
Mm.
had more energy after some time. Like after that initial period of transition,
Mm-hmm.
detox. Like I had more energy. My skin was clear. But it was doing nothing for the pain immediately, and I needed immediate.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I was talking to my OB. I had switched to a different OB. I had dropped the old white woman. I found this black woman who, I mean, you know what they say, like all skin folk, whatever the saying is. I
Yes.
thought it was going to be better.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's what they make us think. They're like, oh, find someone that looks like you and they'll be a better servant to you. And they're not all,
mhm,
that's not always the case. Yeah.
not at all.
Mm.
But I stuck with her, and she recommended me to this the surgeon at UConn. And so I was praying. I'm like, God, like, is this what you want me to do? I was really struggling with that decision because I thought that
Mm.
if I go this route, Lord, does it mean that I'm not believing you for a supernatural healing?
Yeah.
I know that you can do it. I know that you can just make this thing disappear. But if I go forward with this surgery, does it mean that I don't believe that you can do this miracle for me? Or is this the
Yeah.
miracle? Um, and so
Mm.
I struggled with that. And I was like, Lord, give me a sign. And I had gotten a sign where like God was essentially telling me to move forward with this. Like he made it, he set this up in such a way where I knew it was him. I knew it was him. And now, oh man, I'm trying not to get ahead of myself, but even thinking back,
Yeah.
like it was a moment marked because of all the stuff that I went through in pregnancy and birth.
Mm.
It was
Yeah.
the surgery was the catalyst. That surgery was
Yes.
the catalyst because it kept rearing its ugly face and
Oh,
throughout
wow.
pregnancy and preparing for labor and birth. And so
Oh,
I knew it was a divine setup that God was
yes.
allowing me to do. He said, "Yes, go forward with the surgery." And so I got the surgery, and all was well. They removed the fibroid. And another thing that I had to stop saying was my to take ownership of it because it was never mine. And what I learned
Yes.
was back then, early like in my early 20s, I wasn't very knowledgeable about the spiritual realm, but as I grew in Christ and learning more about the spiritual realm, I learned that everything has a spiritual root, physical
Yes.
manifestation, but a spiritual root, and that fibroid had a spiritual
Mm.
root. And I remember one time when I was in therapy, um, my therapist had said something. When she was asking me about what was going on in my uterus when I was telling her the stuff, like the that whole weekend that had happened, and like
Mm-hmm.
what they found, and so thinking back to like spiritual root, physical manifestation, the fibroid was all of the unforgiveness, all of the bitterness, the resentment, all of that trauma
Wow.
that had built up and stored in my body. It was a spiritual root. I needed to let it all go. And I was not yet at that point of letting it go, of forgiveness. But God had to take me on a journey through that.
I'm sure you have to do the recovery and everything, but once that all kind of settled, did it get better? Like your periods and everything?
Immediately.
Wow.
The next period I had was, it was the difference was mind blowing to me.
Wow.
When I tell you the periods that I had before, I had to stack pads and the adult diapers because I would bleed out so much.
Wow.
I had to double up the pads, like use 2 pads to make it a super long, extra long pad.
Yeah.
I was bleeding so much and it was so heavy. That first period after the surgery, the difference was mind blowing. There was no need for any of that. No need for tampons, none of it.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my goodness. It was painless. It was short. I was just like, this is what I need.
Yes. Wow. Thank God.
And so it was like that. After a while, it started to revert back. After a while, it never got fully to that point of me being in that unbearable pain, but it started to like creep back there. And I'm like, okay, Lord, what's going on here? And so, yeah, we had got married. And then so my periods every month, it never got to that point of unbearable pain like it was with the fibroid, but it started getting a little familiar. And I'm like, what is this? No. No. And so much so that it was March 2022. March 2022, I was researching hysterectomies because I was in so much pain. I got to that point where I was like, God, I can't. I'm not pregnant at this point. I don't know if I can go on. I don't know if I can experience another month of pain like this. And that idea,
the devil is a liar.
Yep, absolutely. And oh my goodness, it's so, oh God. I'm just thinking of like, I remember it so clearly because this was March 2022. My daughter was born a year later in March 2023.
That's why. Yes.
I was literally researching hysterectomies March 2022 because I was in so much pain. I got pregnant March, April, May, June. 3 months later in June.
Wow.
So I was researching the hysterectomies because I was in so much pain in March 2022. April 2022, what did something happen in April?
You got baptized. Didn't you get baptized?
We got baptized in May. Okay, yeah. April 2022, we got on one accord and we said, okay, Lord, yes, we're no longer on the fence. We want a baby. And so remember I told you before about okay, if it happens, cool. If it doesn't, cool. And I was disappointed every month when my period would show up. And so April 2022 is when we said, okay, Lord, we want a baby. And I knew that I wanted a daughter. And so without my husband's knowledge, I went to the store and I bought this little pink onesie in faith, believing that I was going to get pregnant and also it was going to be a girl. And so that was April 2022. In May 2022, I had a speaking engagement that we went down to Atlanta for. And at this engagement, we both got baptized and the word of the Lord came forth and she said, I see a daughter. God has a daughter for you. And we were just praising God. So that was the end of May. The beginning of June, my period came. And I said, well, Lord, you said that you have a daughter for me. So it doesn't matter what I see right now. I'm holding on to what you said. I see my period is here, but I heard what you said. And so I'm going to hold on to what you said. And then before the month was out, before June was out, I was pregnant. I found out beginning of July 2022 is when I found out that I was pregnant, but I was pregnant before June was over. And oh man. Amazing. And I knew it was a girl. And then, we found out that it was a girl later on. Well, they confirmed it, but we already knew.
Yes, yes. So tell me about your pregnancy. So you said that this fibroid thing would come up, but overall, how was your pregnancy and kind of like how you chose your provider, all of those things? Share that with us.
Yeah. So I had a great pregnancy. I loved being pregnant. I missed being pregnant. I loved it so much. It was so smooth. Like in the beginning, I would, of course, like the extreme fatigue and stuff. That's all I had was
Mhm.
extreme fatigue. I was always hungry, always tired, and always had to pee. That was it. Other than that, I had no other symptoms. I would ask, and that's why I
Amazing.
had to stop talking to other people because there was this one person who she was also pregnant, and so I had asked like, oh, how was it for you? Because this was like early on, like when I'm just finding out, and so I'm not that far along yet, and she was like, it's and everybody's experience is different, right? But she's like, I hate it, like I can't wait to be done. I'm just like,
Oh.
oh, I'm sorry. Is it that bad? My goodness. And she didn't like it at all. She said, she couldn't wait to just get the baby out and whatever. And so at that moment I realized, okay, you have to protect this because you cannot
Yeah.
allow the feelings, the opinions of other people to taint what God is doing right now.
Mm.
You can't absorb other people's stuff. So you have to protect this. And
Yeah.
that's what I did. And that set the tone for the rest of pregnancy leading up to birth and everything. God had us
Yes.
protect
Wait,
what he was doing.
I have to stop because this is what Rooted Mama is all about, right? Like this
Mm,
moment right here that you're talking about is why it's so important for new mothers like to pay attention to this part because this is where so many women get it wrong, right? Like
mm-hmm,
the identity is so important. Like having a foundation in who you are and especially as a Christian, having a foundation in a relationship direct like in an intimate relationship with God so important because there's so many outside influences and like as a woman of course you naturally want to be in community and like talking to other women and if you don't have that firm like foundation that identity rooted in Christ or rooted in like a higher power, right? But us, we say Christ, okay? Giving you a blueprint, giving you a roadmap. Follow this. Don't follow them, follow this. Because there's so many people that will say just like spewing negativity, whether it's their own pregnancy or something that they experienced, or if it's the doctors or whatever. So as you're talking, I'm like, I can already guess. Like I've interviewed so many people at this point, but also like talked to so many people. And as I'm talking to you, I know kind of the blueprint, right? And you saying this right now will tell me how your story goes going forward. Like because it's just this is the part that gets women and if they don't have a identity or don't have like a foundation, it sends them off immediately. You just have to have it. So you like if you say you believe in something, like you can't let other people get you off no matter what. Or you'll end up in a situation that you never were supposed to be in, first of all, but that you can't get yourself out of.
yeah, and I even think about the Bible says to guard our hearts because everything that we do flows from it. And so it emphasizes the importance of guarding our hearts. And that's what I needed to do. And that's what we have to do as moms. We have to guard our hearts because so easily things can seep in, seeds can be planted, seeds that were not meant for us to thrive. But so all throughout
Mm,
pregnancy, these little seeds that the enemy tried to plant, but it couldn't take root. It couldn't take root because I was
mm,
doing a very good job at guarding my heart, of guarding my mind, of guarding my ear gates, what I listened to, what I watched, who I talked to, and who
mm.
I told what.
Yeah, did you I know that you were seeing um a doctor to start with, but then that switched. So when did you make
Hmm.
the switch to go ahead, but
Hmm.
when did you make the
Yeah.
switch?
So starting out, we didn't plan for a home birth. We didn't say that we wanted a home birth. In my heart of hearts, I wanted a home birth, but not in that home that I was in.
Mm.
because because it wasn't our own home. It wasn't our dream home, the home that we envisioned birthing our children in. We were okay with
Mhm.
the hospital birth. We were okay
Mhm.
with finding a hospital that was VBAC friendly. I say VBAC
Mm.
friendly because that is the label that they gave me. So we went to the only birth center in Connecticut.
Mhm.
And we went there for our prenatal appointments. Our very first appointment, we got there, and the midwife that we were supposed to have was running late, so we had a different one. She didn't even have time to look over my entire file, but she saw this one page and she said, I see you had this surgery, a laparoscopic myomectomy to remove a fibroid from your uterus, and so because of that, we're gonna schedule you for a C-section at 36 weeks.
Oh
And I
my
said,
goodness.
huh?
Why?
Yeah,
What's the reasoning?
you're gonna be scheduled for a C-section. And I said, I just, this is my first appointment. What do you mean? We just wanted to hear the baby's heartbeat and see the ultrasound and get the little picture. This
Yeah.
is my first
Yeah.
appointment. And she said, well, women that have this, you can't have a vaginal birth. And
Wow.
maybe when you got the surgery, maybe they told you that. And so we're gonna have to schedule you for a C-section, and you can't birth here. You have to go across the street to the hospital because you're considered high risk. And I said,
Wow. And
this
this
was
is your
all
first
on the
appointment.
first appointment. First appointment, literally within the first 20 minutes of this appointment, 10 minutes of this appointment, she's saying all these things. And
Wow.
after that, I completely checked out. I completely
Mm.
checked out, and I was just like, I can't. This here is coming up again. Here it is.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
surgery has followed me. I thought this was
Mm.
over and done with, but here it is again. It's been, at this point, it was almost 5 years.
So you said VBAC, and in
Hmm.
case someone's listening doesn't know what that is, so it's a vaginal birth after a cesarean, so after a C-section. So essentially, what they're saying is that she would be considered having had a C-section before because she had this surgery for her fibroid
Yes.
removal, which is not true. They're not the same thing, not even
Right.
close, but that would be the consideration. So if she wanted to have a vaginal birth, they would consider it a VBAC.
Right. And so again, I left that appointment and I had to do a whole bunch of research because I had
Hmm.
many questions that were not answered in that appointment. And so I did a whole bunch of research. I found scholarly articles. And so I knew how to find a good peer-reviewed article because I went to grad school and I had to do all that stuff.
Okay.
And so,
Okay.
look, I came with the research. I came with the numbers. I came with the stats. And I compiled a document with all these different links to all these different articles. And I said, no, absolutely not. I'm not accepting that. Lord, if it's your
Mm.
will, if you said that this is what you want me to do, then I don't want to do it, but I'll surrender. I don't want a
Yes.
C-section, but if you say, Lord, that I have to do it, then I'll do it. But if it's just
Mm.
man saying, if this is man's plan, if this is the enemy's plan, absolutely not. No, I don't accept this because I want a vaginal birth. And I had to surrender that. Even that desire, I had to surrender.
Mm.
And so I know that God gives us the desires of our hearts. He gives us those desires. He plants the desires. The Bible says that he
Mm.
gives us the desires of our hearts. But I think a lot of people like just see it as, oh, he's going to give me my heart's desires.
What
He's
I
going to
want.
grant
Yeah.
my heart what I want, whatever I want. But that's not what it is. What it means is he's going to give you the desires. He's going to give you what to desire. He's going to plant those desires in your heart and cause them to come to pass, because those desires did not originate with you. They came from his heart first. They came from his mind first, and he planted them in your heart. And so not only does he plant them in your heart, he brings them to pass. And that's exactly what he did for me. He gave me the desire to have a vaginal birth, but then he began to give us, after that first appointment, I started looking at home birth videos on YouTube. Like, okay, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can, get a midwife. That wasn't the initial plan. Again, the plan was to find a hospital that was VBAC friendly, that would allow women to have VBACs. And I say allow because a lot of hospitals would turn you away, and say you're too high risk. You can't. We don't do that. We schedule you for a C-section.
When was this about? Like, once you kind of like started to entertain the idea of a home birth, how far along were you?
So this was towards the end of my second trimester.
Wow. Okay.
I was.
And so were you still like going to that birth center?
25 weeks or so. The entire pregnancy, I was still going. As we're going to this birth center and we're doing our prenatal appointments. At first it was every week, and then they did it to every 2 weeks, and then towards the end of pregnancy they want you there every week again. And so we were going to these appointments, and they would say the same thing every appointment. Okay, we're gonna have to schedule you. We're gonna have to schedule you. We're gonna have to schedule you. And I'm just like, yeah, sure, whatever you say. Knowing that that's not. Yeah. And I would say that. So we would get a different midwife every time because they rotated. And with each one, I would let them know, like, that's not what I want. That's not what we're going to do. And a few of them would say, well, that's what you have to do. There was one there who was very supportive. Like she knew what we was about. And she knew that we weren't going to probably, go through with it. But she knew that she had to tell me anyway. But she said, I can't tell you what to do. I know you're going to do what you think is best. I just have to say this because, for legal reasons, I just have to, let you know. But you do what is best for you. And so there was one who we were particularly fond of, where she wasn't like the other midwives. Nonetheless, we still couldn't birth there.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's unfortunate that those midwives, or like her specifically, can't do like home birth and birth center, right? Because there's some midwives that have that flexibility to be able to come out of that center to support women at home. Because that would have been great, but they just don't have that. At least in Connecticut, they don't have that ability to do that.
Yeah. And so we were continuing our appointments at this birth center, and like the first appointment, she said, you won't be able to birth here. We'll have to send you across the street to the hospital. And we won't accompany you there. Usually the midwives would accompany if there was a situation where the mother has to, go to the hospital to birth, the midwives would accompany them there. And she said, and we won't be able to accompany you there. You have a separate team of doctors to help you there. There was something going on where the birth center and the hospital, like the midwives were on strike it was some situation. So they weren't accompanying anybody at that specific time. They weren't, working with the hospital.
I want to address, in case there's someone who's listening, because I know this all sounds kind of wild. Like it's going against what the world will say, like what society is saying, especially in like America. And I wanted to ask you specifically, Nick, if you remember what the risk, because they're labeling you high risk, right? This is what this all is about. I mean, besides them not being able to go to the hospital, but the reason why they keep advising you to have this C-section is because of this surgery, because you are considered high risk. But I wanted to know, do you remember what the risk was? What are they trying to avoid? And like, what was your research? What did you find that made you less afraid?
Yes. So the risk was uterine rupture.
Okay.
They were afraid that my uterus would rupture because of the surgery that was done. And so the percent, I don't remember the numbers. So after I did the research on the vaginal births after my specific surgery, laparoscopic myomectomy, I found completely different numbers than what they were talking about. And I was like, this number is a lot lower than what they were saying it was.
All right, ladies, I've got to pause here because I've been working on something behind the scenes, and it's something that I wish I had before becoming a mom. If you've ever struggled with perfectionism or poor boundaries, I promise you're not alone. I didn't realize how much of that would follow me into motherhood until I was already too deep in it. And I was exhausted and questioning every decision I made. And I had worked myself so much that I developed an autoimmune disorder. And that's why I wrote The Healed Mother. It's not just for moms, it's for every woman who wants to break cycles, set boundaries, and step into motherhood on her own terms. I wrote this book with every woman in every stage of life in mind. So it doesn't matter if you're a future mother or you're already deep in the motherhood trenches, this book could be for you. Podcast listeners get 10% off. So click the link in the show notes and use code HEAL10 at checkout when you grab your copy today. All right, let's get back to the episode.
I don't remember the exact number that they said, but I know that the number I found was lower. And so that gave me peace where I was like, this is why people have to do the work of researching for themselves. Don't just take the doctor's word for it. Don't just run and say, well, the doctor said this, and so I'm going to run with the doctor. No, do your own research. And that's what I had to do, because had I not, I would have been filled with fear, like uterine rupture. No, that can't happen. Yes, of course, schedule me, because no, I had to do my own research on it, and I found that it was not lining up.
And there's something important here too, because we did talk about the vaginal birth after C-section, which is also difficult. And Shaniqua talked about this. So she said that it was difficult to even find a hospital that would even do a VBAC, right? Mm-hmm. And trying to find even that is difficult because most hospitals don't want to do a vaginal birth after any surgery, essentially. And a C-section is a surgery. But the thing is, even that is not necessarily evidence supported. And the research that I found, and like she said, please go do research on your own. But the research that I've found is that the reason why there's a risk of uterine rupture after a C-section during birth, because that's important. It's not like you're walking around and your uterus just explodes or whatever. It's like during the birth process. So while you're in labor, it's because they often use augmenting medication. So like Pitocin or other things that cause unnatural contractions of the uterus, which then lead to uterine rupture. Right. So it's like artificial labor that can cause it as well. And so in the studies, there was not a difference in group. So it was like any woman who was in labor, whether they had it augmented or not, they took like the risk of uterine rupture from there, which is a flawed design, right?
Yeah.
Because a woman who's going through a natural part of labor, like just a natural flow of labor with no interference, what is her risk? That's what we need to know. Not the risk of a woman who has Pitocin, who has like augmented labor. We need to know what a woman who's not having augmented labor, what is her risk? And they don't have that. Do your own research, but that's what I found when it comes to C-sections, when it comes to vaginal birth after C-section, or their fear of it. It's not necessarily grounded in anything but fear. And I would love to see like updated research on this. And if it supported what they say, then great. But the research that is available is flawed at best.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at the end of pregnancy. These people are trying to get you cut open and you're saying no to it. Did you look for any home birth midwives, or was it just kind of like, this isn't going to work?
Yeah, I did. Even before, maybe like early second trimester, I found a practice, a group of midwives where we went to, it was maybe like 45 minutes from us. And so we drove there. We were able to get an appointment and talk to this one midwife, and she said, yeah, of course we do VBACs. I don't see why anybody wouldn't. What do you mean? People turn you down? Wow, that's crazy. And I told her about this surgery that I had. I said, are you still willing? And she said, oh yeah, that's not a problem. And I said, oh, it was such a relief. I'm like, oh, finally, we found someone. And she said, yeah, I would just have to, I'm just going to just fill out the paperwork and, sign on as a new patient, and give us access to your surgery report. And, we'll schedule your next appointment. And it's like, okay, great. And we left that appointment. Before 4 p.m., I was getting a call from their office. The midwife was calling me saying that she would not be able to take me on as a patient because I was considered high risk. And I was feeling so defeated. And I was just like, Lord, what are we going to do? Like, we can't find a hospital. This group of midwives can't even take us. And at this time, God was saying, I told you already. I told you. You're going to have a home birth. And he had already planted it in my heart. I didn't think that I could do it. I didn't think that I could do it, not just because of the space that we were in, but because I was just of the thought that it had to be in a hospital.
Yeah, the programming.
Right. And God's like, no, you're going to have a home birth. And so after God said home birth, we said, okay, well, I said, okay, you're going to have to tell my husband that. But I said, okay, I'm down. And I started like researching, looking for home birth midwives in the state of Connecticut. And I found a few practices. I was reaching out. Some I didn't get any responses to. And so at this point, I was maybe 25 weeks, close to that time. So maybe I was like 25, 26 weeks or so. And I saw like women switch providers at the last minute all the time. And so I was like, okay, I should be fine because I'm not all the way there yet. And so I have some time.
Yeah.
I found this home birth midwife, and I gave her a call. We had a consult, and I was telling her about the surgery, and she was saying, oh yeah, like, you should be fine. Like, I've seen this before. Like, it's nothing new. You should be fine. I don't understand why they say that. And she asked me if I had a copy of the report, and I said, yeah. I sent it to her. She looked it over. She said, this is a textbook surgery. It was this long ago. Your uterus is healed at this point. It's been years. Your uterus is healed. And I said, okay, great. And then so she started asking me about lifestyle, habits and my diet and stuff. And I said, yeah, I don't eat meat and I don't eat dairy. And she said, oh, so what about, do you eat fish? I said, no. And she said, oh, well, how do you get protein? And I said, I get a lot of protein. There's other plant-based sources of protein. And I started telling her, what I eat and what my diet is like. She had a pause and she said, okay, I'm gonna have to get back to you. I gotta think it over and I'll let you know. A couple of days later, she called and said that she wouldn't be able to take us.
Wow.
And her reason was because I was too far in my pregnancy. And I was just like, God, I know that's you shutting the door because
just closing the door.
You said what you said. Yeah. At this point, he was just like, no, I told you you're going to have a home birth and it's going to be unassisted. So that's what it was. God had already said unassisted, but we were still trying to find backup. And so God shut that door. And the silliest thing, diet.
Yeah, of all things.
That was her pause. The diet. It wasn't the surgery. It wasn't all the things that the doctors had said. It was the diet. And so I knew that was God. Right. I just knew that was God.
So how did you start to prepare for your unassisted birth? Because that takes some preparation.
Oh yeah, it took a lot of preparation, and so we prepared mentally, we prepared emotionally, and we had to prepare physically and also spiritually as well. And so God was already preparing our hearts for this. God had got my husband on board because at our anatomy scan, at the 20-something whatever week mark, when we had our anatomy scan, we went to the hospital that the birth center has sent us to for this anatomy scan. We went there, and this was a doctor that we never met before, never met us, don't know anything about me except for what my chart says. And they do the scan, all is well with the baby, and he comes in and he says, okay, so I hear that you want to have a vaginal birth. And I said, yeah, we're going to have a vaginal birth. And he said, no, you're not. And I said, yes. So me and this doctor, we're going back and forth. And I said, yes, I am. And he said, no, you can't have a vaginal birth. And I was saying, I'm going to have a vaginal birth. And he said, I don't know any doctor did he say in the state or in the country I think he said in the country. I don't know any doctor in this country that will allow you to have a vaginal birth after the surgery that you had. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to have a vaginal. Right. I said, okay, well, I'm going to have a vaginal birth. And he said, yeah, and I could touch the moon with my fingers. And and at that point, my husband has stepped in, and and so that was it for him. That was his moment where God stirred his heart enough to say, you know what? We're doing this. We're having a unassisted home birth. Like, it has to be this way. And so up until that point, he was still like, I'm not there yet. It was at that appointment where things turned around for him. And now we were both on one accord, like, we're doing this. Yes, we're having an unassisted vaginal home birth. And so,
hallelujah. Prophetic.
Right. And I'm even thinking about the importance of being on one accord. And so remember what I said about getting pregnant. We had to come out of that in between of, if it happens, cool. If it doesn't, cool. And we had to agree together. Yes, Lord, we want a baby. And so it was the same with this home birth. We had to say, yes, okay, we're having this unassisted home birth. Yes, we say yes to your plan, Lord. Now, what do we do? And so we had to prepare. We were listening to this audiobook. I think it's Birth on Your Own Terms. We were listening to that audiobook. We were watching a bunch of YouTube videos of unassisted home births, and we started to build up the supplies. So we got a whole lot of supplies that we did not use, that we did not need. And really, like, we just needed the bare minimum of some little pads to put on the floor, and just like the surgical equipment to cut the cord and stuff. And in this time, again, what we talked about earlier about guarding our hearts, in this time, we had to be very particular about who we told and what we told. We told no one except for you guys. And I think that was it. Did we tell anybody else? I think it was just you guys.
Yeah.
It was just you
Yeah.
guys who knew, because we had to protect it. No one else would understand. No one else
Mm.
could understand. Everyone else would try to talk us out of it, or like, what's wrong with you? You got to go to a hospital. You're crazy.
Wow.
I remember, leading up to it, people would ask, oh, do you have your hospital bag packed? And are you ready? Do you have your hospital stuff ready? And all this stuff. And I was like, sure.
I got a bag. I got a couple of bags.
Yeah. And every prenatal appointment, they would say, okay, so did you find a hospital yet? Did you, oh, we're working on it. Sure, we're working on it. We didn't tell them the plans either. And so we had to protect this. We had to protect what God was doing, because we could not allow the fears of other people to attach to us, and also the faith or lack of faith of other people. We had to protect what God was doing in this time. And so, yeah, we prepared a lot. There was a lot of praying that we did. Spiritually, we had to prepare, mentally, emotionally, and then, physically get the stuff all for this birth.
Yeah. So when did you go into labor? I know that. Did you get to your due date, or was it after your due date?
Right. I was gonna say, she came exactly when God ordained her to come. But after their expected date, yes, it was a few days. So I went into labor the day of.
Okay.
And so the expected or estimated date was the 16th of March, and she was born on the 19th. So labor started the 16th of March, which was a Thursday. It was a Thursday. Around like it had to be around like 3 a.m. or something. I started feeling contractions, and it wasn't anything crazy, but I did notice them. And it was enough for me to take note of. My husband, we woke up that morning, he went to work. He asked me first, like, am I okay? I said, yeah, go ahead, go to work. Everything is fine. Everything is okay. Just go. I'll be fine. It's nothing to that point just yet. He said, okay. He was on his way back by noon. I had called him to tell him to get back, because the contractions started getting more intense. And I was recognizing a pattern. And so I was like, yeah, maybe you should get back. Oh, it also, my mucus plug came out. And I said, yeah, maybe you should get back here. And so he left work and he came back. At that point, we started to prepare. This was literally the day of the 16th. And so he was blowing up the pool. We planned for a water birth. He was blowing up the pool that we never used. And he was using all the breath that he had for that pool.
Oh,
never used
not
it.
with his breath.
Yes.
See? That is so funny. Oh my goodness.
And so we were preparing all the things, and I was, laboring. This was early labor. Little did I know it was very early labor. And so we were doing all these different things to try to progress it along, and everything in our own strength to try to get this to keep going along. And as labor intensified, we just said, forget the pool. And we filled the bathtub. And so I would get into the bathtub, and I would be so relaxed that the contractions would slow down. And then nothing. And then it would start back up again. And so like we would stall. I would stall in labor, and it was like a self-induced delay, because I was trying to take things into my own hands to try to make this happen when I wanted it to happen. And so Thursday came and went. Friday came, and I was like, Lord, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to labor the whole weekend. Please, Lord, I don't want to continue in labor. Let this baby come tonight,
Yeah.
because I decree and I declare that this baby is gonna come tonight because I'm not laboring the entire weekend. God said, LOL. LOL. Okay.
Spoiler alert.
Right. So I labored all Friday. Yeah, and then Saturday night, well, all day Saturday it was so intense. Saturday night, man, I just knew that I was close, and I thought I was there a few times because I'm like, oh. At one point, Steve was knocked out. I had went into the bathroom, and I was just laboring on the toilet, and I was by myself. I was just in the zone, and I was just like, Lord, it was just like me and Holy Spirit in that moment. Like, I had to get in that zone. And then I think Steve had woke up and realized that I was gone, and he was like, where'd she go? And found me in the bathroom. Yeah, I had labored literally for 4 days, and she was
Wow.
born Sunday morning by
Wow.
8:30 a.m. She was born on a Sunday morning. But leading up
Wow.
to it, like, there was a lot of surrender that needed to happen, and there's a few things that even you had texted me in the midst of it all, like just reminding me to surrender, to let go.
Yeah.
And like that was the biggest takeaway of I need to let go, I need to surrender.
Wow. I didn't want to interrupt you, but there were a lot of questions that really kind of led to that point. So I'm glad that I didn't interrupt you. So I was thinking throughout, number one is that what mentality, right? Which is really not mentality, but like, what is it that could keep someone going this long, right? When you said first day, Thursday, Friday comes, do you know how many women would have gone to the hospital? Just day two, right? Or how many women would have said, I can't do this? So there's
Yeah.
something to your story that is automatically supernatural in terms of just not natural, extraordinary, right?
Yeah.
Because so many people would have already given up just having gone through the labor for one day. Maybe 12 hours is too long. Maybe 24 hours is too long, right? And for you to have pushed through to Sunday, that tells me that at some point you stop being in control, right? You had to have surrendered to God because so many people would give up, right?
Yeah.
So it was no longer in your power. It was not in your
Right.
power at that point. And so when you talk about surrender, ladies, this is so important. This is so important. Everyone goes into birth, as a first time mom, and they got two things on their mind: pain and how long it's going to take. So it's like the pain of it and then the length. And it's like the biggest battle to overcome. And so many people are willing to just like sacrifice everything in order to take away the pain and to make it as short as possible. And both of those things are in your power. It's not, you're putting it in your power. So you're saying, okay, it's painful, so I can do something to take it away. Oh, it's too long, so I can do something to shorten it. And when you talk about surrender, it's the complete opposite of that. But it also allows you, because when you start meddling is when things go awry. And a lot of people just will not accept that. It's like you have to stop meddling and let birth, because your birth would be pathologized in the hospital. It already was. They were already pathologizing before you even went into labor. Okay. So if you were to
wait until the after story.
yeah. So even if you were allowed to go through the natural birth process and try to have a vaginal birth, they would have stopped it on day 2. They wouldn't have let that happen. So for you to then go 4 days essentially and then vaginally birth a beautiful, healthy baby and not have a uterine rupture after 4 days of labor, because even that is a testimony right there. To not have a uterine rupture after 4 days of labor. God said it has to be this long. It has to be this long. Because if it was shorter, right? If it was shorter, then it would have been a fluke. But for you to labor for 4 days and not a single tear,
Wow.
God said,
Wow.
let me show you
Wow.
something. Okay.
Wow.
So now we're talking about the baby is born, and I just have to plug this that I heard her beautiful voice because Daddy called me.
The first
Her beautiful
outside
voice.
person to
Yes. Steve, I got to tell this part because I'm part of my story. Okay. Steve calls. Baby's born. I don't know how far. I just don't know how long she was out. Was she just?
It was
just
fresh.
out?
It was literally just slid out.
So he calls. He's like, "Hey, Des," and I was like, "Hi." He's on your phone. So I'm like, "Where's Shaniqua?" And then I hear the baby crying in the back. He goes, I can't remember the question he asked. Something. Okay, so there was something that like, yes, I think there was meconium, which is like the baby's first poop. So like when your water broke, there was meconium present. And he was like, we noticed that there was meconium present. Like, is there anything that we need to do? And I was like, oh, I
That's what it
can
was.
hear
She
her.
pooped on the way out.
Yes. Okay. And I was listening to the baby. I was like, as long as she looks okay, I was like, just monitor her for the next couple of hours. But like my daughter had meconium and she was totally fine. So I felt comfortable saying like, she's likely fine. But at the same time, he's like, oh, okay. Okay. And I was like, Steve, you just had a baby. Congratulations. And I think he was just like so caught. He was just like, okay, like, what is the baby okay? Like he's in dad mode. Like, is everyone fine? Like, is everyone fine? And I just had to like bring it to his awareness. Like, you just brought life. Like, she just brought life into this world. Like, she's here. Congratulations. And he's like, oh, thank you. Okay, go on.
Yeah. Man, I'm even thinking like, oh gosh. Yes, thank you for even pointing that out about it had to be that long. It had to be that long. God said, it's not about you. It's not about you. I will be glorified through this. And so take your focus off yourself and stop trying to rush this process and just go through it. I know that so many women have been and will continue to be blessed by what God did there. What God did for me in that bathroom, on that bathroom floor where my daughter was born, for what he did those 4 days, how he sustained me, how my water didn't immediately break. It was a small trickle. But it started maybe, on that Thursday or Friday. But if, like you said, if we were in the hospital, they wouldn't have allowed that to go your water broke. Oh, this baby has to come out in this time. And so that would have been a no-go for them. So many red flags for them. Oh no, it's taking a little too long. You're progressing along a little slower than we would like. And so all these things, oh man, I'm so glad you said that. That was nothing but Holy Spirit. That it had to be that long. It had to be that long. And I remember, so going back to what I said about the seeds that the enemy plants, that seed that he planted in March of 2022 of hysterectomy. Now, here it is. This is March 19th, 2023. This is just moments before my daughter is born. She's crowning. Her head is crowning. And her head, it keeps slipping back up. She will crown, and then the head will slip back up. And then she will crown some more, and then it will slip back up. And after maybe 3-4 times of that, I said, Lord, I can't. You're going to have to look. A demonic thought, a seed was planted in my mind. See, it would have been easier to have a C-section, wouldn't it? You should have just had a C-section. And I said, no, absolutely not. Lord, you said that you would not bring me to the moment of birth and not cause delivery. That's your word. And because your word doesn't fall to the ground, you have to stand by your word. You have to deliver. I need you to deliver.
Wow.
So when that was happening, when she was crowning and slipping back up, I said, no, Lord, you said that you would not bring me to the moment of birth and not cause delivery. So I need you to deliver. And I need you to deliver her now. And then her head was out. And then after her head was out, she just slipped right out. and Steve caught her.
Yeah.
But man,
And even that,
yeah.
that's the body doing what the body's supposed to do. Like the
Oh
baby,
yeah.
it's so much better for the baby to come up and down because they're
Yeah.
slowly working their way out versus that force that they're like, push,
Yeah.
push, push, get the baby out. It's
And
like,
that's another
okay,
thing. I
follow that
didn't push
natural
at
pattern
all. I didn't push. My
because you
body
didn't
did
have
it for
to.
me. Yeah.
This is the part where
Um,
it's so hard to explain if you haven't experienced it. But that coached pushing that happens so often is so unnecessary when you have a natural birth because your body is going to get that baby out whether you want it to come or not. After
oh
a while
yeah.
you get to the point where you're just pushing and the body is
Yeah.
doing what it's going to do no matter what. And it's hard to explain if you haven't experienced it, but it is very true.
Yeah. One thing I do want to also say, I just remembered when you said, most women would have already quit by that point. By before, some women would say, oh, 12 hours is too long for me. Um, and okay, well, I have this option to shorten it. Oh, I have this option to make the pain go
Mm-hmm.
away. There was no option for me. I had no other option
Mm.
because we were in the bathroom at home. I had no other option. It was just me, my husband, and Holy Spirit, and that's it. And
Mm.
my only option was to continue with what God told us to do. That was my only option. Had I been
Yeah.
in the hospital, of course, they would have presented me with other options.
It's a good no, that's a good point and it's one that I recommend and it's like if you say that you want a natural birth, right? Then don't put yourself in an unnatural situation. So, if you
Yeah.
want a natural birth, if you want an unmedicated birth, then you shouldn't go to a place where there's medication that's available,
Hmm.
right? Because chances are you're going to use it or they're going to want to do it. They're going to want to give it to you. And I'm not saying avoid safety, right? I'm not saying avoid safety. What I'm saying is if you actually mean what you say, that you want a natural birth or a vaginal birth or whatever, don't put yourself in a scenario where that is very difficult to happen.
Even if you, so say someone desires, so for the women who desire a vaginal birth and unmedicated birth, but aren't really there yet with uh, having a home birth, um, and an unassisted home birth, but saying, you know what, I do want to have an unmedicated birth, but I want to be in a hospital for that. Yes, you can absolutely do that, but just like you said, Des, you have to be so rooted in your foundation. And for me, I think that even if I was in a hospital, because I'm so strong willed, because I'm so
Mm,
rooted and I am not easily swayed, I'm not easily convinced, I'm not easily talked out of something,
mm.
they would have had to hold me at gunpoint to get me to sign off on medication because I know what God said. And so even if, we found ourselves in a hospital, I think that because I'm so strong willed, that I would still stick with God's plan of, no, this is what God said and this is what I'm doing. Um,
Yeah, and
and
that's where
so,
you have to be. That's the
mhm,
only way that you can actually come against some of these things again if you want it. There's women who don't want it, but like if you're someone who's listening and you say this is what you really want to do and you believe it, you have to be able to have that strong will, and that starts with having a firm identity and being
mhm,
rooted in this belief. Otherwise
yeah,
you just blow with the wind. But that kind
yeah,
of leads us to the afterbirth and what happened there. Yeah. So go ahead and
yeah.
finish that story.
So now that baby is born, all is well. We're both healthy. I did not tear. Again, there was no uterine rupture like they said that there would be, and I didn't tear. Um, and so everything was fine, except I was so exhausted because I just
Mm.
labored for 4 days. I was completely wiped. And so my husband was transferring us from the bathroom toilet to the living room couch. Well, at first he wanted to get us in the bed, but our bed was so high up, I couldn't even climb up there. And so he got us on the couch, and I'm sitting on the couch. I'm not even laying down. I'm sitting on the couch, my butt sitting on the couch. And I'm completely exhausted, baby in my arms. She's just on my chest. I wasn't breastfeeding. She's just laying on me. And you're just so exhausted. And my husband is looking at me like, are you okay? And he's thinking like, oh, maybe she lost too much blood. I don't know. And so I think he called a couple people he knew was in like the field. And one being a family friend. And, you know, the first thing that she said was, get that baby to the hospital. Like, what's almost like, what's wrong with y'all? Get that baby to the hospital. She said, that's what she said. Get that baby to the hospital.
You did. And he wasn't even calling about the baby.
Yeah. And so, man, after that, he asked me, he said, well, how are you feeling? I said, I'm just tired. I was exhausted. I didn't drink a lot either, so I was dehydrated. And so, you know, laboring for 4 days, didn't drink much. And I was just exhausted. And I told him that I was just tired. And he said, well, what do you feel about going to the hospital? Like, I said, I don't really care at this point. I'm just, my baby is here. I'm good. Like, I'm just tired. The paramedics came and they checked us out, and they said, there's nobody else here? It's just you guys? And my husband said, yeah. Who delivered the baby? He said, I did. He said, they were so impressed. They were so impressed that we did this on our own. There was no medical professional there, no, you know, midwife or anyone there to help us. And they were like, wait, it's just you guys did this on your own? You have the tools? And he's like, yeah, we have everything. We planned this. And they were so shocked, and like, because they've never seen it before. And so I'm thinking that they were just going to like check us out and, okay, you're all set. He even said like, oh, she didn't lose. She's good. She didn't lose too much blood. Like, that's a perfect amount. Like, they went to the bathroom to look. Said that's normal. She's fine. She's just tired. So we were all good, but they took us to the hospital. There was already a person that was rolled in before us, and we had got priority. And so everybody is looking around like, what? And then the paramedic had went into the office to tell them, you know, the situation. Like, oh, you know, they had a home birth, and they said, home birth? They did a home birth? What? Almost like it was illegal or something.
Yeah, you would think so.
They did what? Yeah, they did what? Oh, and from that moment, we were labeled. From that very moment, we were marked. And that set the tone for our entire stay in the hospital. That moment of them finding out we had an unassisted home birth. They brought us up to the labor and delivery floor and got us in a temporary room. They took my daughter and did like the measurements and all that stuff. And they were like checking me out. So remember I said after she was born, I went to the couch and I was sitting on my butt. So I did not deliver the placenta. And so, because of that, she was still attached to, you know, the placenta. Obviously my husband had to clamp the cord. So fast forward, we're in our hospital room, and they're doing all her measurements. And such. And they throw a whole bunch of paperwork at me, thinking I was just going to sign and not read. And so when she saw that I was sitting there reading every single line of these papers, and she said, oh, just sign here. I said, no, I'm going to read this. And she's like, no, I said, no, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to read. And she was ticked off because of that, because I chose to sit there and read. And then that was another X that I got.
Yeah.
Because I was what did they say? Non-compliant. And then they had asked about, oh, are you going to give her the vitamin K shot? Are you going to give her the the eye ointment? All these newborn measures that they do. And I said, no, don't need that. No, thank you. We're good. And they're looking at me like, you're not going to do this? And I said, no, I'm not. And they're like, do you know what this is? Do you even know what this is? And I'm like, yes, I've done the research. And you think I'm saying no for no reason? No. There was one doctor that came in. So all these were nurses. The doctor had came in and he's checking me out. And he said, okay, I see you didn't deliver the placenta yet. I'm just going to give a little tug. And I said, don't touch me. Do not touch me. Wait a minute. What are you about to do? He said, no, I'm just going to give a little tug and that's it. He yanked. He said, just when I give a little tug, I want you to give a little push. He yanked this placenta out of my uterus, out of my vagina. He yanked it out. It happened so quick, I didn't even have time to really react. But I'm like, I had like this scream. And he's like, okay, it's over. It's over. And I'm like, and then they put it in a pan and they started whisking. I said, hold on, where are you taking it? Where are you taking my placenta? And the nurse said, oh, we take it to the lab for testing. I said, testing? What are you testing it for? No, it's just procedures that we do. It's normal. We do this all the time. It's just what we do. It's nothing bad. We just test it. I can't remember what they said testing it for, but and I was just like, interesting. And this was before I knew all the things that they really do with it.
Yeah.
And that I could have told them, no, leave it right there. And then the nurse started to try to put me on an IV. And I said, hold on, what is that? And what are you doing? And she said, oh, it's just PIT. And I said, what's PIT and what is it for? And she said, oh, it's Pitocin. And this is for, this is just what we do after birth. And I said, why? I don't want it. No, thank you. I don't want it. And she said, well, what do you mean? Are you refusing it? And I said, yes, I'm refusing it. I don't want it. And then so she goes to the doctor and she says, she's refusing PIT. And he says, is she bleeding? And she says, well, no. And he says, well, if she's not bleeding intensely, then she doesn't need it.
Wow.
And then she was just like, oh, okay.
The procedures that are done. That are done. Wow. And so how was I do remember this. So how was it with the baby? So that was all kind of like with you.
Oh, yeah.
So how was it
with her? They asked about, the process of labor and stuff. And there was, because my husband had told them that my water I guess they were under the impression that my water broke completely on Thursday. But it didn't. It was just a small trickle. But because of that, they said, well, she's high risk for infection. And, the baby could have infection, so you guys can't go anywhere. Oh, actually, she said, the baby can't go anywhere. You can go, though. You're all checked out. You seem healthy. You seem fine. But we have to keep the baby. And I said, if you think that I'm leaving my baby here, you're crazy. No, we're staying. And I was trying to like correct them, and it was a hot mess. So that was the first thing, their first reason for keeping us when we were all healthy, both of us completely healthy. There was nothing wrong. They got us up to a permanent room, and we're sitting there, and I'm trying to find a way out. Like, we got to get out of here. I am not staying. I know what they're doing, and I'm not staying here for the 2 days that they want me to stay here. I'm not doing it. I need to get out of here. And the next reason, so after the first reason was debunked, the next reason was well, she's a little yellow. She might have jaundice. So let's do some testing. Um and Steve is like, "Yellow? What do you mean? This is the color that I was when I was born. Like, we're black. What do you mean?" And so they're like, they did the forehead test, the radar gun or whatever it's called, I don't know, to test the number, and I guess the number came back higher than they wanted it. And so they said, okay, this is a little high. We're going to test it again in a couple hours. And then a couple hours went by and it was higher. And even though they said that when the baby is first born, this is what happens. Like, the numbers will go up. And so they said, oh, the numbers went up. So she most likely has this. And to really make sure, we're going to have to do a blood test. And at this point, I was like, you're not taking my baby's blood. You're not doing any of this. No. Are you refusing? Yes, I am. So this is their question that they would always ask me whenever I said no, or when I challenged something. They would say, are you refusing? And so I had said, no, you're not. I'm not having this. No, you're not doing it. They did all these measures to try to keep us in the hospital, because, like I said, from the very beginning, they labeled us as non-compliant. They labeled me as non-compliant, and this patient is going to challenge everything. And that I did. I questioned, okay, what is this for? I just didn't go along with anything. What is this for? Let me read this. Let me read this. And they didn't like that.
It's interesting because this is what you experienced after the baby was born, but this would be the case when you're in labor too. So like when you said earlier, you're very strong-willed, and you are. So if you were in labor, you would be having to do all of this, right? And so there's something to that. Like, think about your labor process, your birth process, and how it would be continuously interrupted with you having to advocate for yourself. Wait, what are you doing now? What you know what I mean? Like, you have to keep coming out of that birth space. And how could you surrender to the birth process when you're constantly having to go back into the world and like fight these battles? So again, it's like one thing if you don't want it, right? Like, that's really important. So if there's a woman who's listening to this story and like you're just listening because you're interested, but you definitely want the medical side, that's one thing. But if you're listening because this is something that you desire, these are the things that you're likely going to come up against. And it's not because they like hate it. It's not because they don't know what they're doing. It's just kind of like they don't take the time to think about it anymore. It's just kind of like a routine. So they're like, wait, you're refused. Wait, we give pit. We do this. And it's like coming from probably a good place, but it's more of like a conveyor belt of these are the things that women go through. And if a woman comes in questioning these things, having done the research, they're like, wait, you're you're not complying. Like, this is weird to us. We don't know what to make of this. And so I guess my point is like, this is what Shaniqua has experienced after her birth, right? But this same stuff goes on during the birth, which is so much harder to deal with. It's so much harder to deal with as you're laboring. You are giving birth. Like, you're not supposed to have to fight these battles, and yet we do. So, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so after
it makes sense why some women just give in and say,
of course. Okay. It's such a hostile environment for any mother who has a little bit of, doesn't have to be a lot, a mother who has done some research, who has some things in mind that she really wants to happen and has like a good foundation of why she wants those things to happen. It's a very difficult situation unless you get an empathetic nurse or, someone who is on the other side, who is willing to kind of block you from some of these major barriers or block you from some of these attacks, honestly. Okay, so you guys get through all of this. You stand your ground on a lot of things. And
Mm-hmm.
when were you able to take her home? Was it that same day?
So we ended up staying in the hospital for the designated time, the 2 days where they
Okay.
can definitely, get that insurance.
Yeah.
And so we ended up staying the full 2 days, and I was. We tried to leave at multiple points, and they said that
Mm,
if we attempted to leave, that they would call CPS because we were
wow.
endangering our child. Yep. And so they threatened to call CPS, and at that, we're just like, there's nothing wrong with her. We're
Yeah.
both healthy. You're keeping us. You have no real reason. The test came back normal. We got the blood test. We ended up getting the blood test for the to test the
Jaundice.
bilirubin. Yeah, and it came back normal. Even though the forehead
Wow.
thing kept going high, I said, okay, just do the blood test so we can go.
Mm-hmm.
They did the blood test and it came back normal. And they said, okay, she's fine. There's no jaundice. But we still want to make sure, we still want to monitor. And I'm like, there's nothing else to monitor.
Yeah.
And so they just,
And you're
oh,
her
well,
parent.
mm-hmm.
At
And
the
then
end
they
of the
said,
day,
well, you
you
need
should
a,
be able to just go. Like if they
right.
haven't proved any sort of harm, she's loved, she was cared for. You guys had all the materials you needed and all these things. Yeah, it goes against what you're comfortable with as a doctor or a medical professional, but by all objective measures, this is a healthy, loved child, a healthy mother, and no matter how much you disagree, they should be able to leave with their baby. They've given you all these chances to prove that there's something wrong and there's not.
Right. Exactly. And
Wow.
so the last thing was, you can't leave until a pediatrician, if until you have a pediatrician appointment, and they come here and they check you out, and she's all good. Then you guys can go. I said okay. So we started to look for a pediatrician. We found one. Um, he was already associated with the hospital, and so he had came in. He checked us out. He said she's absolutely perfect. She's fine. I
Mm,
don't know why they kept you guys. I don't see any sign of jaundice. She looks fine. She looks perfect. Please go.
wow.
Um, and so we finally left. But I know that even that hospital stay, there was purpose in there, because they had never seen something like this. They had never experienced a case like this, and
Yeah.
God needed for them to see that it was possible to do this. And so I know
Yes.
that even through that, like it blessed someone in there.
Wow. Wow. Okay, Neek, we got to stop.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for this, like truly. And
Yeah.
I did want to give you a chance to talk about what you're working on, the ministry that you have, because it definitely kind of goes in line with what we're talking about here. So if you could just give us a little plug of what you're doing with your ministry, that would be great.
Yeah, so I have a ministry. It's called Daughter to Daughter, and it is where daughters of God heal from trauma in His presence. And so, taking all the trauma that we experienced and bringing it to the feet of Jesus, and letting there be a divine exchange that happens. So, beauty for ashes. Um, and so that's what we do in Daughter to Daughter. Right now, we are planning for a retreat that's going to happen in May 8th through the 11th, which is Mother's Day weekend. But this retreat is called the Soul Surgery Wholeness Retreat. And there it's all about just allowing God to do that inner work, that surgery that we need on our hearts to uproot what I was talking about earlier, about those things that I was holding on to from my childhood, that manifested physically. And so at this retreat, we're going to be addressing all those soul wounds, all the old trauma, the old wounds, and all those things. And so that's what I'm up to. That's what I'm doing. I'm
Yes.
serving God's daughters in this way.
Yes. I love it so much. All right. Well, thank you for being on and sharing this truly, like, truly amazing story. I really
Yes,
appreciate it.
thanks for having me, and just I am so appreciative of like even your platform, and Rooted Mama, because this is something that I needed when I was going through the
Mm,
process. I wish that there was something like this. There was a woman that I had got in contact with who she had the same surgery as me, and
mm,
um, and she went on to have a vaginal birth, and she connected me with a woman who also had the same surgery as me, and she gave birth in that same year or the
wow,
year after.
wow.
And so
Yeah.
that fueled my faith. Her
Mm,
testimony fueled my faith to know, wow, my surgery was years ago, and she did it not long after, and she was able to have a vaginal birth. So of course I can do it. This is something
yeah.
these stories that you're featuring, that's something that I needed back then. And so God, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful to God for what you are doing here and how you are highlighting the testimonies that would go unnoticed otherwise.
Mm. I could do a praise dance right now. Thank you for tuning into The Rooted Mama. I hope today's episode left you feeling inspired, supported, and a little more rooted in your own motherhood journey. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another mama or mama-to-be. Remember, motherhood is a journey best shared. So let's keep growing together. Until next time, stay strong, stay supported, and stay deeply rooted.